Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. My name is Mark Richards, and I am delighted to serve as your worship associate today and welcome you fully into this space. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies here. We welcome your mind and your heart and your spirit here. We welcome all you are bringing with you today and all that your heart longs to set down. We extend a special welcome to each guest among us. We invite our guests to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plate later in the service. Guests may also pick up a welcome packet at the back of the sanctuary, where you will also find hearing assist devices and Braille hymnals. And a fragrance-free area is located on the front right side in the first few pews. If you're a visiting family, including children or youth, after the stewardship ritual noted in your order of service, please join the children's recessional and head across the hall to the common room. There you'll be greeted by someone who will orient you to religious education. Immediately following the service, everyone is invited for coffee and conversation in the common room. Again, my name is Mark Richards, and you can come talk to me at the guest table there. As a way to engage at First Church, I invite everyone to explore the announcements insert for the numerous opportunities available here. In particular, let me draw your attention to a few. The church is currently accepting applications for alto and tenor choral scholars. This paid internship position starts as soon as possible and involves the scholars singing on Thursday night rehearsals and on one Sunday a month for both services. The position is for students who are currently enrolled or recently graduated from studying music. Details about the position can be found on the church website. The Interchange Food Pantry needs more volunteers and are hoping you can help us out. Stop by the social justice table for details and please sign up for this worthwhile service to our fellow Milwaukeeans. The Singers in the Streets Social Justice Singing Group is starting up with a couple of workshops on Tuesday, February 25th, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. at First Church, and Sunday, March 1st, from 1 to 2 p.m. at Zal MKE Church. If you are interested in being part of this group, please plan on attending one or both of these workshops or contact choir director Tristan Strelitzer. Please find details on these and more events in the announcements insert. Finally, please silence any electronic devices for the remainder of the service. Once again, I welcome you to First Church by inviting you to join me in the unison reading of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. And now I'd like to welcome Mark Chambers to light our chalice this morning.
Our opening words this morning are by Barbara Wells. O spinner, weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love to weave new patterns of truth and justice into the web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting. Will you please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn number 22, Dear Weaver of Our Lives' Design. Folks, I have some really exciting news. Today is the opening Sunday of our stewardship drive. Oh my gosh. So today we have our pledge team and our visiting stewards with us, and as a congregation we're going to affirm their call to lead us forward in stewardship. But before we do that, I'd like to recognize all of the folks who work year-round in stewardship, which includes the pledge team and the visiting stewards, but also the Heritage Society team, the Income Opportunity team, and the Feast for Funds team. So if you are a member of any one of those teams, will you please rise now so that we can appreciate you? Thank you all so much for your service. And now I would actually like to invite those who are members of the pledge team or are visiting stewards this year to come up and stand here in front of the pulpit. Oh, folks, there's gonna be crafts. So these are the members of your pledge drive team and the visiting stewards team. They are going to lead us in our pledge drive this year. So over the course of the next month, you may be contacted by one of these people to talk with you about your role in the stewardship of our congregation. Their names are printed in your orders of service, and these are their faces. So if they try to get a hold of you, please respond. Now, congregation, will you please rise in either body or spirit and enter into covenant with our visiting stewards and our pledge drive team? I'm going to lead both sections on the mic, but congregation, you're the congregation, and visiting stewards and pledge drive team, you're the visiting stewards and pledge drive team. All right, here we go. This congregation exists to change lives, to nurture spirits, engage minds, and inspire action in our members and our community. Stewardship exists to fulfill that mission. As members of a free and democratic church, we know the loving stewardship of our congregation belongs to all of us. The Stewardship Council and Pledge Team are pieces of the community acting on behalf of the whole. We trust you to lead us in lives of stewardship on a journey of gratitude, commitment, and celebration of our community and values. We are humbled by your trust, and we take up this task on behalf of us all. We move forward together in service and commitment, giving of ourselves to build our beautiful future. You may be seated.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth Monholland, and I'm serving on the pledge team this year. And I am also recovering from bronchitis, so I apologize for the cough. So I'm sure many of you are wondering why we have a loom in the church today, and that's part of what I'm here to do to explain. So as we kick off our 2020 pledge drive, we are asking all of you to help us create a tapestry that will serve as a powerful symbol of our spiritual community. We are woven together by our connections to one another, our shared values, and our visions for the future. This tapestry will serve as a lasting reminder of the unique and diverse individuals that make up our church community, our interdependence, and the strength and beauty of what we create together. You can see that the loom already has threads that have been woven in. We started to weave this tapestry at a recent gathering of church leadership. At that gathering, we reflected on what being part of this beloved community meant to us, as well as our visions for its future. We had a lively conversation, and each person wove a thread into the loom to represent their individual connections and contributions to this community. And then after first service, and I think some of you may have saw this as you came in for second, we had the loom in the common room, and lots of people engaged in continuing that conversation and continuing to weave. And so I'm inviting all of you now to engage in similar reflection, to ask yourself, how has being a member of this community nurtured your spirit, engaged your mind, and inspired you to action? What will be your part in shaping and ensuring our congregation's future? In a minute, the visiting stewards will be passing baskets of yarn and fabric. I have a sample here. So we're going to ask everyone to take a piece of cloth or a piece of yarn. It doesn't matter which one you take. You can take more in the common room later. Just take one and pass it along. But you can get creative on these in the common room, on the cloth, you can write your visions, you can draw pictures, or you can just take 1, 2, or 3 in the common room and weave it into this tapestry. The loom will be, as I said, in the common room at coffee hour, not just today, but over the next several Sundays. I promise it's easy and fun, and for those who are already engaged, you can attest to that. And we will bring the completed tapestry to the service celebrating the end of our pledge campaign. And I and all of the pledge members cannot wait to see what we create together. So I'm going to invite my visiting stewards / pledge team members to come forward and get their baskets. And then we're going to pass it around. Everybody take something, and then take that piece of your commitment into the common room and out into your time over the next few weeks. Choir, we forgot you last time.
Will you please rise in either body or spirit for our children's recessional hymn number 95, There's More Love Somewhere. We invite children, youth, and teachers to sing first verse of the hymn before going to your classrooms. I'd like to invite you now to join in a time of contemplation, which will be followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of hymn number 123, The Spirit of Life. So take a moment to just get comfortable where you are. Bring your attention to your body. Maybe you can feel your feet on the floor, grounding you. Or maybe you can feel the top of your head connecting you to all that is. Maybe you can bring your attention to your breath, moving in and out of your belly, and let it bring you into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. We give thanks today for the ways this community sustains us. We give thanks for all of those who are weaving their work into it and serving the whole. We give thanks for those who give of their time, making coffee and baking bread and greeting newcomers. We give thanks for those who give of their talent, singing in the choir and making sound investments for us and teaching our children. We give thanks for those who give of their resources, making sure that this sacred space is available to all who need it and for generations to come. We give thanks for this place, for the privilege to have a place to worship, to learn and grow and transform, to connect and love. A place that changes us and changes the world as we live our values together. It is good to have a spiritual home. May we rise to the trust given to us of making sure that others are as lucky as we have been in finding it. May it be so.
One of the most meaningful and arguably difficult experiences of my life was when I was deployed to Afghanistan as a UH-60 Black Hawk pilot. My unit arrived there a few months after the September 11th attacks when things were chaotic and dangerous. Looking back on that exciting and scary time, it has become clear to me that the brotherhood of those I was with equipped me to persevere the next time I faced adversity. Bobby Remington was one person in particular that taught me and others on the team how to deal with the stress and challenges of combat. Bobby was a native of Hawaii and fully embraced the island personality. One of the hardest working people on the team, he was never without a smile, and his laughter was contagious. You couldn't help but be in a good mood when you spent time with him. One day, Bobby and I were teamed up, like we had been many times before, to be the lead aircraft of two to take some people from a remote outpost in Afghanistan to Kabul. We flew from our operating base to the headquarters to pick up our passengers, and while we were idling in the pickup zone, mortar rounds started landing a few hundred meters away, and were getting closer with each subsequent round. We were urging our passengers to hurry up and get on the helicopter, while my crew chiefs were yelling out how many still needed to board, as we sat there watching the explosions get closer, feeling increasingly anxious with each passing second about how long we were sitting on the ground. Finally, everyone was on board. We put the engines to 100% and took off just as the landing zone received direct hits. After turning on course, making our radio calls, and settling into the flight, it became relatively quiet. No one said anything. And then a few seconds later, I looked over at Bobby, and he was smiling. I suspect that my facial expression showed what I was thinking. What are you smiling about? He keyed the mic so that the whole crew could hear and said, "Well, if it's not fun, it's funny." And in that moment, the four of us laughed hard and for several seconds. That guy from Hawaii taught me that during times of difficulty, you're never alone, and other people can help you see it in a way that makes it okay to laugh, even when it's incredibly hard. That life lesson helped me to lean on others during my deployment to Iraq a year later through chemotherapy, and has definitely helped me through the challenges of parenthood. There are plenty of things that aren't fun in life, but thankfully, there's almost always someone who can help you laugh about it.
The oldest known living tree in the world is named Methuselah. Methuselah is a Great Basin bristlecone pine tree that lives in the White Mountains of California. Bristlecone pines have an old, appropriately gnarled appearance with long, flaky strips of red-brown bark and deep green needles. On the northern slopes of the mountains of California and Nevada and Utah, bristlecone pines' average age is 2,000 years old. Now, southern slope bristlecone pines average a mere 1,000 years old. But Methuselah is 4,853 years old, which makes Methuselah literally older than Jesus. 3,231 years older than Jesus, to be exact. Indeed, Methuselah was born at least 2,700 years before the very first books of the Hebrew Bible were being written down, and 1,900 years before the time Orthodox Judaism says that the oral stories were first being told. So that means that Methuselah the tree was born before Methuselah the story. Methuselah being the oldest character in the book of Genesis, the son of Enoch and the grandfather of Noah, who you might remember from that ark story. And still, Methuselah is young compared to the oldest living clonal tree. A clonal tree or colony is a single living organism that's genetically identical and comes from a single ancestor, but lives in multiple parts. Old Tajiko is the world's third oldest clonal tree. Tajiko is a Norway spruce that lives on a mountaintop in Sweden. It looks just like a normal tree, a little over 15 feet tall, with a lot of shrubby, needled branches at its bottom, and then a craggy white bark trunk leading up to a traditional spruce tree. Tajiko's trunk is relatively young, maybe a few hundred years old, but old Tajiko's roots are 9,561 years old, or almost twice as old as Methuselah. Tajiko has lived for so very long through a process called layering its living parts on top of itself. Every time a growing branch touches the ground, that branch roots there and grows down into the ground as the tree also simultaneously grows up. Over the course of millennia, the tree regenerates its roots. It has grown and regrown many different trunks and, of course, all kinds of branches. A trunk in a Norway spruce can only live to be about 600 years old. But a spruce can grow and regrow new trunks again and again from its roots as the old trunks die. It is this layering of many different living parts and then sending the living energy back and forth amongst those parts that makes a clonal tree so resilient. It's like this in a human community as well. A choir can sing a note for an impossibly long time because people within the choir take their breaths at different moments. They take turns, meaning that the choir can hold a note much longer than an individual. We make each other resilient when we're in community by taking turns, whether that's taking turns breathing, or taking turns doing the work, or taking turns in different roles at different times. In a congregation, when we have time and emotional energy to give, we might serve as a pastoral care associate, as a caring presence to people in our community who are struggling. When we have love and patience and a lot of energy, we might serve in one of our religious education classrooms, nurturing the spirits and the minds of our young people. When we have a call to leadership and a vision for the whole church to share, we might choose to serve on the board of trustees. When we have a desire to nurture new leadership and the capacity for attention to people and relationships, we might serve on the nominating committee. When we have a story to tell, we might serve as a worship associate, or a song in our heart, we might serve in the choir. And when we have financial resources, we give them back to the whole, to serve the entire church. There are also times when it's our turn to rest and receive back in our community. Sometimes I find that for Unitarian Universalists, this is even more difficult than giving. But receiving also makes the community more resilient. We give when it's our turn to give, and we take our turn receiving when it's time to receive. In 2012, in the UU First Parish of Wayland, Massachusetts, a woman named Mary Dunn won the church auction sermon. Now, we don't engage in this practice here and don't get any ideas. But what this is during the church auction, when the minister auctions off the opportunity for a member of the congregation to choose a sermon topic. Now, Mary bid, and she bid high, and she won that sermon topic, and she chose the subject, Got Hope? Now, this is not so bad as auctioned off sermon topics go. It wasn't compare Immanuel Kant's deontological morality with humanism. It wasn't, does my cat understand existentialism? But unfortunately for the preacher, this was not an ordinary request about finding hope. Mary Dunn wanted him to preach about how you find hope when you can't. Now, Mary Dunn was a mother whose 18-year-old daughter, Lauren Dunn Astley, both a lifelong UU and a child raised in that congregation, had been murdered by her boyfriend the previous year. The congregation knew Mary's story and knew Lauren well, and they were waiting for the sermon on Got Hope? Not so easy anymore. The Reverend Ken Sawyer, who had served that congregation for 38 years, wrestled with the topic. He solicited advice and opinions from members of the congregation, from friends and ministerial colleagues, from parents who had also lost children. And after many conversations in community, it was eventually the ministerial intern who gave the answer that Reverend Ken Sawyer preached about. When you cannot find hope in the dark night of the soul, it is the community that holds out hope for you. When life is too much or too hard, when you do not have the emotional resources yourself, you can let the people around you hold on to hope for you. There are times when it's necessary to go ahead and let go, to spend your energy wrestling in the dark night of despair. And usually when you're in that dark night wrestling match, you need both hands. And so you let go of hope because the match takes everything you have. But later, when the day breaks and the sun rises and your community is standing there waiting for you, they are holding on to the little piece of hope so that when you're ready and rested in the new dawn, they can return it to you. Community can figuratively and quite literally help you hold on to hope when you're wrestling with despair. According to the health psychologist and educator Kelly McGonigal, recent research says that our connections directly affect our physiological experience of stress. Now, generally speaking, stress makes you sick. It increases your susceptibility to disease. But recent studies have shown that there's a little bit more nuance to the physiological response to stress. Like Mark said earlier, the meaning that we make of stress can affect our experience of it. And this is literally physically true. The recent studies show that when we have a stress response, cortisol is released into our body, our blood vessels constrict, our heart beats faster, our body gets ready for a flight or fight situation. However, when we make meaning of that stress response and say in our brains, I'm having a stress response right now, this is my body's adaptive response to a difficult situation. It's doing a useful thing for me right now, and I am going to use my body's adaptive stress response in this stressful situation. Then our body relaxes just a little bit. Our blood vessels open up, and we can respond to the situation at hand. Physiologically, when we do that, the stress response moves from looking like stress to a physiological response that looks more like joy. A second recent study showed that when you reach out for support when you're under stress, you increase the hormone oxytocin in your body, which is linked to feelings of love and connection. Oxytocin acts to protect your body from the cardiovascular effects of stress. It relaxes blood vessels, acts as an anti-inflammatory, and even helps the heart muscles heal from stress damage. As McGonigal said, your stress response has a built-in mechanism for stress resilience, and that mechanism is human connection. Through meaning-making and human connection, our community literally helps us weather the dark night of the soul. Our pledge team this year is inviting us to weave the tapestry of our community together, weave our shared connections and our values and our visions for the future. Each one of us brings the thread of who we are into this congregation, but it is in the weaving that we make the tapestry. It is in the gifts and service that we give, and it is in receiving the gifts of the community and the ways that that transforms us that we create this congregation, making it the tapestry that it is. And it is in bringing resources to the pledge drive that we make this congregation function. This is a pledge drive sermon, folks. The 20th century theologian, Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams said that our offering plate was the true sacrament of the free church because it is the symbol of our freedom. It represents the fact that we pay for ourselves. There's no outside authority telling us what to do or how to run our congregation or paying our bills. This congregation is yours, quite literally. It's your spiritual home, as well as a real material place that has lights and heat and walls and staff that work for you, all of which require money. The vast majority of the budget here at First Church goes to implementing programming, to the pastors who lead pastoral care programs, to the music directors who bring you the stunning and moving music every week, to the religious educators who form the budding faith of our children, to the social justice leaders who bring your faith out into the streets, to the membership professionals who keep you connected with one another, to the support staff who help you know what all is going on and when it's happening and how to get there, who make sure you can get into the building and that the lights are turned on and that the heat is working and the bills are paid and that everything is running smoothly in all of those programs that nurture your spirits and engage your minds and inspire action. I've said it before, and I will say it again. We are on a journey together towards pledge sustainability, which means that every year we need to raise just a little bit more money than we did the previous year. Currently, because we're both catching up to the expense of paying for a growing congregation and because of the normal ebb and flow of membership over the course of transition, our annual expenses are not fully covered by our annual pledge income. Right now, chunky bequest income is currently covering the gap between our annual operating income and our program expenses. However, every year we need to take another step towards our long-term plan of covering our annual operating expenses with our annual pledge income. Sounds fun, doesn't it, people? Yeah. Budgets, woo! This year, your fellow members on the pledge team have set a goal of raising 5% more in pledges for the 2021 church year than we raised for the 1920 church year. So as you make your plans over the course of the next month of this pledge drive, will you consider raising your own pledge by 5% or by $8 per month, whichever number is larger? Yes. Thank you, Pat. Pat's ready to go. If every single household does that, then we'll reach our goal and we'll be another step closer to pledge sustainability. Now, I know that not every household has the capacity to cover a 5% increase this year. So I am planning on increasing my own pledge by 5% this year, plus someone else's $8 per month. So if you also have the capacity to cover another member's increase, would you consider joining me in adding another $8 per month to your 5% increase?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. There is a new movement happening across the United States where churches are coming together to pay off millions of dollars of people's medical debt. In October of 2019, a group of churches in the Chicago area came together to pay off $5.2 million of medical debt for families in the Chicago area. They worked together with an organization called RIP Medical Debt to pay off debt for pennies on the dollar. Together, those Chicago churches raised $38,000, and with that $38,000, they wiped away $5.2 million of medical debt for people. So in November of 2019, almost 6,000 families in the Chicago area received a yellow envelope in the mail out of the blue that wrote to them about the information on their relieved debt, with a list of the churches that paid it off, and a message to them that said, "May you have a beautiful, wonderful holiday. Your debt has been forgiven. Enjoy Thanksgiving." This is the kind of transformative work that we are capable of when we work together. When we have the freedom to dream with our hearts as well as our pocketbooks, when we're released from the constraints of worrying about sustainability and just paying the bills. Becoming a pledged sustainable congregation will allow us to dream bigger and take on values and vision-based projects with bequest money. So let's get together and let's get creative. Let's weave our connections and our values and our vision into a beautiful tapestry of love that is more than just the sum of our parts. We're more powerful together and more resilient and sustainable in community. Woven together, we can be older than Methuselah and more resilient than old Tajiko. We can hold out hope for one another in the darkness and turn stress into long-lived resilience. We can enable one another in pain to once again choose love. And through generosity with our resources, through putting our resources to work in line with our values, putting our resources into people rather than more useless stuff, we can truly live out our faith in this world. Together, we can weave our dreams into a tapestry of love and then weave that tapestry into reality. May it be so.
Every week, we have an opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledge cash in our offering plate with a community organization. In this way, we commit our resources in line with our belief that this congregation is interdependent with the world beyond these walls. Today, we share the plate with Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. May the practice of giving bring us joy. The offering will now gratefully be received.
or spirit and join in the responsive reading printed in your orders of service. This reading is entitled Optimism, and it's by Jane Hirschfield. I'll begin. More and more I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resistance of a pillow, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree, finding the light newly blocked on one side,
it turns in another.
A blind intelligence. Out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs.
All this restless, unretractable earth.
And will you join us in singing our closing hymn number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New?